Welcome back to Lightroom Classic. So we have had an update from Adobe. They've done a small update here in Lightroom Classic in a large update inside of Photoshop. Now, today we're going to take a look at Lightroom Classic, and they have added something called color grading, which used to be called split toning. And a lot of YouTubers are out there saying, wow, check out this amazing new feature. Well, it's not an amazing new feature. It's basically an old feature that they've adjusted and changed a little bit. It's better, it has more options, but it's not an amazing new feature. It's something that was basically always there. And basically, I'm going to be using it exactly the same way. It's just the interface or the look of it looks a little bit different. So first thing we're going to do, color grading is a terminology used for video. So if you've ever watched a video and it has cool tones to it, they've desaturated all the color and it's just kind of this monochromatic green or blue, or maybe a split tone where the shadows have one color. It's trying to bring mood into the image. So if you're watching a movie, you will notice that the color has been kind of sucked out of the image and they've replaced that with maybe green or blue tones, maybe in the shadows of the highlights, or maybe a color for the highlights and a color for the shadows. It doesn't really make a difference. That is called color grading. In photography, it's also referred to a lot of times as split toning or a monochromatic tone. And basically that's all you're doing. You're just toning your image in this location. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you, you don't split tone or color grade in color. You want to switch it to black and white. And the reason for that is a perfectly toned black and white image is not a perfectly toned color. So you can see here, this image has gotten a lot darker, and that's because the color doesn't translate into black and white. A lot of times you need to open up your mid-tone areas because they get too dark. So I could come in here and I can adjust this a little bit. So I can open up my shadow areas. I can also open up this image a little bit. I can also come in and grab this brush and I can make a small adjustment and I can brighten up her face. Now, I'm not going to come in here and spend a lot of time painting and getting this exact. So if I have some bad areas, don't worry about it. It's just a tutorial. I could also come in here and I could paint this and apply it. The shadow area of the horse just to brighten the horse up a little bit. We just want to brighten this image up. Traditionally, a black and white image is going to be much brighter than a color image. We've lightened everything up. It's looking good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here to the new color grading. And so we're going to click on this little triangle and it's going to bring up these three little color wheels, which are new. It used to be sort of a little color picker and you could pick the color. Now the color picker is just a color wheel instead of a color picker. And this is where the color grading comes in. A lot of times when you're color grading on a video editing program, you have color wheels instead of little color pickers like we usually see in photography programs. Doesn't make a difference. The one new thing is we've added one for midtones. This doesn't mean that you have to use it. It's just there. So up here we have the first little icon, which is showing all three wheels at once. We can show just the shadows, just the midtones, just the highlights, or in this case, global. So what global means is it's applying the same color everywhere to the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. If I want to do like a sepia toned image, I could come in here and get sort of a sepia toned color. It's applying that globally, so it's monochromatic sepia toned image. In this case, I don't want to use that, so we are going to put that back to 0, hopefully. So if you do want to reset it, just like everything else, you hold that Alt or Option, it comes right up here. It says reset global and we'll just hit reset. Now it's perfectly neutral. So I'm going to go back to the three wheels and we are going to do what's called split tone. So we're going to add a color to the shadow areas and a different color to the highlights. So some of my favorite colors are sort of this kind of blue color. That's a little bit too vibrant for me. I don't want it that. I want lighter, but less saturated. So this is one reason you might want to come and open up just the shadows because it lets you get into it and see the colors a little bit better. Now, the first thing that we have is a luminance slider. So this is going to allow you to make that brighter or darker. In this case, I'm just going to basically leave it close to 0. All right, the next thing that we have down here is a blending and balance. And this lets you adjust how it applies the split toning. So we can either add or subtract from shadow areas, and we can kind of control how it's going. So if you notice, if I go this way, we're kind of blending that over into the highlights. And here we're taking it away. And then if we go to balance, it's sort of doing the same thing. So it's sucking it out of the shadow areas. So we have less in the shadow areas, and now we're adding it back into the highlights. And this is allowing you to control how that works. So the next thing we're going to go to is highlights. I'm not going to do the midtones on this one. We're going to come over and we're going to grab sort of an orangish color. And just like I did before, we can control the lightness of that, but we can also blend it. So we can change these sliders to change the way the blending works. So you can see I'm adding more to the highlights, and now I'm blending, and this is now swapping between the two colors. So right now we're at sort of a 50-50. If I want more in the shadow areas and midtones, I can slide this over, and that way we're getting some of the blue color more in the midtones and less of the yellow in the midtones. If I want more in the midtones, the yellow, I go this way. So you're just going to go ahead and slide that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing it. So this is what's called split toning your image. And the last thing is midtones. And so midtones is going to allow you to add a color to the midtones. So I can come over here and we can try a red, right? So I can add this sort of a reddish color to the midtones. Remember, I can control the way this is being applied to the image by adjusting these sliders. So I can add more or less, and I can blend those how I want. And I'm not a huge fan of adding a color to the midtones. I just think it makes life too complicated. But if you do want to do that, that's how you adjust your image. If you don't like it, hold that Alt option, click reset. And now we're back to our traditional image. Then I can come down here to Y and Y, and what we'll see is the before and after. So this is my split toning version of color grading. I like simpler images, so we've added a little of this orangish yellow and a little of this blue to the shadows. This was our original image, and this is our final image. And that is the new color grading. That's basically it. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.